I woke up. The library was a cage. My memories, they were stolen. And arcane inheritance helps me find hope, trust my gut, and share both stories. Watch my summary now, and you must read the book yourself.
You are standing on a freezing rooftop.
Hmm.
And I really truly want you to place yourself there for a moment. Feel the stone beneath your feet, the air up here. It doesn't just feel cold in the way, a normal winter night feels cold.
Right, it's different.
It feels fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
It is an absolute absence, a vacuum that is actively, aggressively pulling the thermal energy straight out of your bones. It's heavy, suffocating. Like every single breath you take requires conscious, agonizing effort.
Like trying to inhale at the absolute bottom of a swimming pool.
Exactly. It coats the lungs. And it smells of ozone. You know that sharp metallic tang you get on the very back of your tongue right before a massive lightning strike hits the ground?
Oh, yeah. That static taste.
It's that, but concentrated, weaponized. And it's mixed with this dry, choking scent of ancient dust. The kind of dust you only find in a tomb that hasn't been unsealed in a century. It is the literal smell of forgotten things, of stagnant time.
And if you look up.
Right, if you look up, the sky is not a sky, it is a bruise. A deep, necrotic, festering purple. And it's choked with these thick, completely unnatural clouds that block out the stars, they block out the moon. The heavens are just completely sealed off from you. The only light illuminating this freezing rooftop comes from the orbs.
That sickly, pulsing blue light.
It is the exact color of a gas flame, but it offers absolutely no warmth. It just pulses, like a heartbeat. A slow, rhythmic, deeply terrifying heartbeat. And these orbs, there are dozens of them, hovering right over the stone battlements of this hidden tower at Warren University.
They're globes of living, crackling magic.
And inside them, inside these orbs, are people.
Students. I mean, children, really.
Young adults, 18, 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
Suspended in the exact center of these blue spheres in this forced, unnatural slumber. And if you look really closely, you can see the light is actually moving. It's a current.
Pulling from them.
Pulling their life force. Their very magic, their memories are being siphoned away, drawn out of them like sap being bled from a maple tree. A slow, agonizing drip to feed an unseen root system. But the true horror of this moment isn't just what you see around you. It's what you feel inside your own chest.
Because you are Ellery Morgan.
You are Ellery Morgan, and you're being torn apart.
A literal, visceral tearing of the human spirit.
I want you to try and imagine the sheer, blinding panic of existing in two places at the exact same time. It's a biological paradox. Your brain simply cannot comprehend it. Your spirit, your conscious mind, and astral projection essentially is up here on this freezing rooftop.
Fighting the wind.
You are feeling the biting wind. You are fighting for your life. You are fighting for the fundamental truth of your own reality. But your physical body, the flesh, the blood, the bone, is trapped.
Floating.
It is floating in one of those magical cages 20 feet away, completely asleep, entirely vulnerable.
The silver cord is stretched to its absolute limit.
You can physically feel it snapping. You are screaming on the rooftop, but your physical mouth inside the orb is sealed shut. You are sprinting across the stone to break the cages, but your physical legs are paralyzed, just dead weight suspended in blue light. You are captive in the architecture of your own mind, watching yourself be consumed.
And down below you.
Down below you, standing in the deep, ink-black shadows of the battlements, are the architects of this nightmare, the old masters.
Just watching.
Watching like vultures perched on a rotting branch. They don't have faces. They wear these featureless masks made of silkworm thread, bleached white.
No eye holes.
No eye holes, no slit for a mouth. Just blank, terrifying, completely smooth voids that catch and reflect that pulsing blue light. They aren't rushing up the stairs to attack you.
Yeah.
They don't have weapons drawn. They don't need to. They are just waiting.
Because time is entirely on their side.
It is the ultimate psychological torture. They are waiting for your spirit to tire. They are waiting for the agonizing strain of this dual existence to break your mind in half.
To shatter you.
They're waiting for the siphoning spell to act like gravity, to drag your exhausted astral body back down into the cage, back into the comforting manufactured lie of a dream world they built for you. They're waiting to eat your memories, to fuel their sprawling empire of wealth and influence while you sleep your entire life away in the dark.
It is the ultimate violation, the complete and total consumption of the self, masked as an Ivy League education.
Kamilah Coles. An Arcane Inheritance is not just a dark academia novel. It is not just a ghost story with pretty aesthetic trappings. It is a suffocating descent into a hidden, parasitic world.
Yeah.
Today, in this deep dive, we are going to follow the agonizing trail of stolen memories. We are going to examine the deliberate architecture of elitism, the psychology of surviving a system designed to literally eat you, and the terrifying reality of institution constructed solely to feed on the marginalized.
And, we really have to start with the physical space. Because if the very architecture of a school is designed to crush outsiders, imagine being dropped into that space not as a legacy student, but as someone who already feels like an imposter. How does a physical space trap a mind before magic even enters the equation?
It begins with Graves Library.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the centerpiece of the Warren University campus, and I love that the text doesn't just treat it as a backdrop. It's not just a set piece. A massive amount of time is spent establishing its physical, imposing presence. It's not a building you just walk into. It's a psychological landscape you have to survive.
It's an endurance test.
Exactly. The architecture is explicitly stated to be modeled after the Barrière d'Enfer in Paris.
Right. The gates of hell, literally translated. These were the toll houses built in the late 18th century.
And we have to really unpack the historical weight of a toll house. A toll house is a checkpoint. It is a physical manifestation of authority demanding a price for passage.
You don't pass for free.
Never. In Paris, these specific toll houses were located right above the catacombs, the Empire of the Dead. So you have this neoclassical, pristine, symmetrical architecture sitting directly on top of millions of human bones. And Graves Library perfectly mimics this terrifying dichotomy.
You approach this building, and the text describes the limestone facade bathed in this deceptively warm, golden afternoon light. It looks majestic, right? It looks like the absolute pinnacle of human achievement.
But then you look at the entrance. The stone arch doesn't welcome you. It's described as looking like the gaping maw of a primordial creature actively sucking the air out of the courtyard. It is undeniably beautiful, but it is deeply, fundamentally hostile.
It's a predator camouflaged as a sanctuary.
Inside, you have this ornate, one-story entrance hall, lounging above ground like a king on a throne. But beneath it, beneath the polished wood and the green reading lamps, 8 underground floors.
8 floors buried in the earth. I mean, it is an ossuary. It's a literal descent into the underworld.
And the sensory details down there are just incredible. The air is described as stagnant. But it's not just stale, it's flavored with generations of stress. You have these heavy, vaulted stone ceilings. And there's this one single round skylight at the very top. Ellery goes down to the basement once during her first week. Just once.
And never again.
Never again. Because she notes the permeating, suffocating, late August heat fighting against the full-blast industrial air conditioner. It creates this unnatural, shivering clamminess. It makes her feel, quite literally, as if she has been buried alive.
And that feeling of premature burial, that is so essential to understanding what Warren University actually is. Think about what a library represents in the real world. It is traditionally a place of enlightenment, right? A place of expanding the mind, of limitless possibility.
Open doors.
Right, open doors. But Graves' library subverts that entirely. It is designed to push you down into the dark. It isolates you.
She stares up through that quivering skylight, and she watches the shadows of the students walking across the glass on the ground floor above her. And the longer she stares, the more a scream actually builds in her throat.
Panic sets in.
Pure panic.
Yeah.
Because she realizes, instinctively, biologically, that if she screams down there, it'll only echo around those heavy stone walls. The sound will never bleed through that thick glass to anyone who can help her. She gets full-body goosebumps. She makes a vow right then and there to never go lower than the second floor ever again.
And even when she's studying up higher, when she's reading her constitutional law textbook later, she notes that the bookshelves are arranged in these dense labyrinthine stacks. They are positioned like barricades.
Like a maze.
They give people the illusion of privacy, but really it's just a maze to get lost in. It's completely silent except for the turning of pages and the relentless New England rain against the windows. And in that silence, she can hear someone a few aisles over, quietly weeping. It's a space that enforces a crushing, silent pressure on the human psyche.
But, okay, I have to ask the skeptic's question here.
Yeah.
I look at this and I wonder, is this heavy-handedness purely an aesthetic choice by the founders? Warren University isn't Harvard or Yale. It wasn't founded in the 1600s. It was built in the 1950s.
It's new money.
Exactly. It's new money. They wanted it to look like an ancient ivy. So is the neoclassical elitism, the intimidating columns, the oppressive libraries, is it just them putting on airs, playing dress-up to feel important? Or is it a deliberate, calculated psychological weapon engineered to crush the spirits of outsiders before the magic even has to do any work?
Oh, it's absolutely a calculated weapon. There's no doubt in my mind. The architecture of elitism is never, ever accidental. You have to remember the specific history of the school's founding as it's laid out. Three immensely wealthy, vainglorious men, McElking, Troy, and Odell, they buy up massive acreage in Hartford, Connecticut in the post-war decades.
Just carving out a kingdom.
Right. They build pristine, manicured lawns. They
Yeah.
construct these monolithic neoclassical buildings. They're intentionally creating an environment that screams at a subconscious level, you do not belong here unless we allow it.
It's architectural gaslighting.
Precisely. The physical space is designed to intimidate. It is explicitly designed to make anyone who doesn't come from generational wealth, anyone who doesn't have a recognizable last name on a building, feel small, precarious, and utterly, desperately alone. They want you to feel grateful just to be allowed to breathe their air.
Which brings us perfectly to the insidious nature of the Godwin scholarship. And this is where the text truly takes a sledgehammer to the traditional dark academia genre.
Yeah, she completely subverts the tropes here.
Usually in these stories, think The Secret History or similar books, the protagonist is middle class, maybe a bit out of their depth financially, but they are invited into the elite secret society because they are intellectually special. They are chosen because they are uniquely brilliant.
The diamond in the rough.
Right. But look at Ellery Morgan. She is a 21-year-old freshman. She is a black immigrant from Jamaica, living with her aunt in a cramped apartment in Astoria, Queens. She didn't get to go to a four-year college right out of high school because she fell into the most brutal trap of the modern American education system.
The middle income trap.
If you've ever had to fill out a FAFSA form, if you've ever sat at a kitchen table sweating over tax returns, you know exactly the purgatory Ellery is trapped in. The text presents this so authentically. She is deemed too rich on paper to qualify for meaningful need-based Pell Grants, but her family is vastly too poor to actually afford a $70,000 a year tuition without taking on absolutely crippling, life-ruining debt.
It's the void between systemic help and actual financial independence. It's a dead zone.
So what does she do? She grinds. She works double shifts at a local comic book store. She works at the Queens Public Library. She is hustling just to help her Aunt Carol pay the rent and cover medical bills. She has deferred her dreams of being an investigative journalist for 3 long years.
Watching everyone else move forward.
She watches her peers move on, graduate, start their lives, while she is stuck behind a cash register. And then, out of the blue, this heavy, cream-colored envelope arrives from Warren University. A full ride. Tuition, room, board, stipends, everything paid for. The Godwin Scholarship.
And we learn that they seek her out. They target marginalized, underrepresented students specifically.
On the surface, to the outside world, this looks like this incredibly progressive, deeply benevolent diversity outreach program. It's the ultimate modern fairy tale for the socioeconomically disadvantaged, an elite institution reaching a hand down from the ivory tower to pull a deserving student up.
But as we discover, it is a trap. A literal, predatory, biological trap. The old masters, the secret society of alumni and founders actually running Warren behind the scenes, they are not benevolent philanthropists. They are human leeches.
They use the Godwin Scholarship as a hunting ground. They use it to scout for students who possess wild magic, raw, ancestral, unrefined power. And they specifically prey on marginalized students because those students lack the wealth, the powerful familial connections, and the societal capital to fight back.
They pick people who, if they suddenly go missing, or if their personalities drastically change, or if they drop out and end up in a psych ward, society won't ask too many questions. Society will just chalk it up to the crushing pressure of an Ivy League environment.
Yeah.
You know, oh, she just couldn't handle the coursework. They write them off entirely.
The text is delivering such a scathing, unapologetic critique of how elite institutions operate. It forces us to look at how these spaces use the concept of diversity, not as a moral imperative, but as a shield, as a commodity. The old masters bring these Godwin scholars in, not to educate them, not to give them a brighter future, but to consume them, to literally siphon their innate ancestral power, to fuel the sterile magic of the elite. The institution literally feeds on the life force of the marginalized to maintain its own unearned power and prestige.
The intimidating neoclassical architecture of the library, the faux benevolence of the scholarship, the grueling, relentless academic pressure, it is all part of one carefully calibrated machine. It is designed to isolate the prey, break down their psychological defenses, and harness them with maximum efficiency.
So we have this machine, and it begs a really uncomfortable question about the characters caught inside it. I mean, is it worse to be invited into the elite class believing you've won the lottery only to discover you are solely there to be consumed? Or is it worse to be born into that elite class, draped in wealth, knowing your entire existence is funded by the fact that you are the bait?
That question right there is the absolute core psychological tension driving our two leads, Ellery Morgan and Hudson Graves.
Let's look at how Ellery navigates this first, because her imposter syndrome is debilitating, and it's so authentic. She is 21. She is surrounded by 18-year-olds who have never, for a single second of their lives, doubted that they would end up at an Ivy League school.
It's just a given for them.
For them, college is a guarantee. It's an inheritance. For her, it's this fragile, precarious gift that feels like it could be snatched away the exact moment she makes a mistake. She is constantly battling to prove her worth, not just to the professors, but to herself. She is utterly exhausted.
She is studying constitutional law, which is brilliantly noted in the text as a prestigious murder weapon used by the powerful to legally enforce their will, and Ellery physically feels her mind, her soul, and her confidence expiring under the weight of it.
And how does she cope with that existential weight? She grounds herself in the tactile, the physical, sensory details of the real world.
Yes. We have to spend some time talking about the Moleskine notebook.
This detail is so striking. It's not just a prop. It is a psychological anchor. It's a battered black Moleskine notebook. It has frayed, softened edges from constant nervous handling.
Because she's always holding it?
She never lets it go. And inside, on the pages, she has repeatedly practiced writing her own bylines over and over. Ellery Morgan, Ellery J. Morgan, E.J. Morgan. She desperately wants to be an investigative journalist. That notebook represents her stolen future. It represents her desperate grip on her own identity and her own aspirations in a place designed to strip her of both. She carries it pressed against her chest like a shield.
Because her reality is constantly, terrifyingly slipping. The magic of the old masters, the siphoning spell they are running on her, it runs on a very specific fuel memories. To alter the physical world, they must consume the mental world. So Ellery is experiencing chronic, aggressive déjà vu. She is missing chunks of time.
Whole hours just gone.
She is having horrific waking hallucinations. Her brain is being overclocked and drained.
So she clings to sensory details to prove to herself that she actually exists. The physical texture of the notebook, the sharp citrusy scent of bergamot radiating from her best friend Ty's tea, the smooth, earthy scent of shea butter that always accompanies Hudson Graves when he enters a room. These smells, these textures, they anchor her when her mind feels like it's dissolving into static.
And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have Hudson, the golden boy, the scion of the founding family. He literally has his last name carved into the limestone of the library.
He owns the place.
He walks around campus in this immaculate midnight blue peacoat, his curls dyed white gold, acting like an untouchable, angry god.
But his internal reality is a nightmare. He is suffering from profound, living legacy trauma.
Hudson was born into the belly of the beast. His father, Nathaniel Graves, is one of the highest-ranking Old Masters. And Hudson possesses his own wild magic, an immense, cataclysmic, destructive power. We learn it manifested when he was just 9 years old. He was hiding, listening to a violently escalating argument between his parents, and in his terror, his magic lashed out and shattered all the windows in the house.
The glass just explodes.
The sound drew his older brother Cairo to the room, which ended the fight. But what does his father, Nathaniel, do in response?
He gaslights his own 9-year-old son for over a decade. He looks Hudson in the eye and tells him the magic didn't happen. The windows just broke. It was the wind. But it goes deeper and darker than that. Nathaniel physically alters the older brother's, Cairo's, memories of that night to cover it up.
He scrambles his own son's brain.
He scrambles Cairo's brain to protect the secret of the old masters. And as a direct result, Cairo spirals into becoming an alcoholic outcast, estranged from the family.
Hudson is raised in an opulent, terrifying prison. He is desperate for his cruel father's approval, a classic abuse dynamic, while secretly knowing he possesses this terrifying power that his father would exploit or destroy if he ever found out the truth.
Hudson is trapped by his own bloodline. He knows exactly who the old masters are. He knows they are parasites. He knows exactly what they do to the Godwin scholars. But he is a child of the system. He was raised to inherit it. Yet he secretly orchestrates a massive 3-year plan to help Ellery. He acts as the moderator in her dream world, quietly trying to poke subtle holes in the illusion.
Leaving breadcrumbs.
He tries to leave breadcrumbs to get her to remember her own power because he knows she's the only one with enough raw magic to shatter the siphoning spell. But he has to do all of this while playing the role of the perfect, obedient, sociopathic legacy son.
Which brings us to their dynamic.
Okay, I have to jump in here and push back on this because as I was reading this, my skeptic alarms were going off constantly. I am highly cynical about this entire rivals to lovers romance between Ellery and Hudson. To me, looking at the mechanics of the plot, it reads purely as a product of proximity and shared manufactured trauma.
You don't buy it at all.
I don't. Think about how he treats her. He is horrific to her at the beginning. He publicly humiliates her in their law class. He mocks her background. He uses his immense privilege as a bludgeon. And then, when we finally get the massive reveal that they are trapped in a temporal loop, and we learn that he has been acting as her moderator in the dream world, literally curating her reality, it feels deeply manipulative to me.
Well, he's trying to...
Of course she falls for him. He's the only constant variable in a world intentionally designed to disorient and terrify her. To me, it reads like Stockholm Syndrome disguised as a sexy, dark academia romance.
I hear what you're saying, but I disagree completely, and I will passionately defend this dynamic. You are looking at the surface behavior without looking at the systemic mechanism beneath it. The friction between them is the point, but the genuine connection is the anomaly that ultimately destroys the machine.
But he controlled her dream.
He moderated it. He didn't write every variable, and he certainly didn't write her feelings. You have to look at why he was horrific to her in the waking world. He was actively trying to push her away, trying to make himself so repugnant to her that she would keep her distance, keeping her safe from his father's notice. But simultaneously, he was magnetically drawn to her wild magic.
A moth to a flame.
Exactly. But more importantly, think about how the old master's system operates. The siphoning spell relies entirely on isolation. It requires the Godwin scholars to be alone, friendless, paranoid, and easily consumed. The love that develops between Ellery and Hudson wasn't programmed by the spell. In fact, it defied the spell's core parameters.
It wasn't supposed to happen.
The text makes this incredibly explicit. The old masters eventually had to pull Hudson out of the dream world completely because his pedestrian weakness for Ellery, his actual genuine affection for her, was compromising the structural integrity of the siphon.
So you're arguing their connection was a glitch in the software.
It was a virus that crashed the system. The love between them is the only thing that made the magic real enough to break through. When they finally connected, when they stripped away the armor, when she saw past the mask of the angry, traumatized rich boy, and he saw past the defensive walls of the exhausted immigrant, that authentic, unscripted human friction sparked her ancestral magic. A system built on sociopathic control and consumption simply cannot account for genuine sacrificial love. It broke the programming.
All right, let's explore that. If genuine human connection is the anomaly that crashes the system, how exactly is the system designed to function without it? Let's get deeply into the mechanics of the magic in this world, because the text does not leave it vague.
No, it builds a very rigid academic structure for it.
The old masters use a highly structured, sterile, almost bureaucratic categorization of magic. Dean Godwin, one of the founders, distilled all magical practice into 3 distinct classes, which he calls the 3 primes. And these are based on ancient alchemical principles: incantation, evocation, and divination.
And we get these incredibly specific, resonant bird motifs assigned to each prime. Let's break down the mechanics of how this actually works.
Let's start with incantation. It is tied alchemically to salt and symbolically to the crow. Why? Well, in the Hidden Founders Museum, Ellery finds these statues. The crow statue has a specific symbol carved into it, a sun bisected by a horizontal line. Hudson later explains to her that salt, in alchemy, represents the material body. It represents the earth. It is permanence. But it's also inextricably tied to memory and human will. The text specifically references Munin, one of the Norse god Odin's 2 ravens.
Munin, which literally translates from Old Norse to memory.
Exactly. So, mechanically, how do you cast an incantation? How do you alter physical reality? You must surrender a memory. You have to burn a piece of your own past, a piece of your own mind as fuel. And this process requires the purification of salt. It leaves a physical, crystalline residue behind. When you cast, the memory is incinerated, and the byproduct is salt. It is a literal extraction of the self.
Then you have evocation. This is tied to sulfur, and symbolically to the hummingbird, specifically the Jamaican doctor bird.
Which is such a brilliant integration of Ellery's heritage. Grant Carroll mentions earlier in the book that the indigenous Arawak people of Jamaica believed that doctor birds carried reincarnated souls. They are spiritual messengers. And alchemically, they are tied to sulfur. Sulfur represents the spirit, it represents fire, combustibility, unpredictability.
Mechanically, evocation is the magic of summoning. It is the act of pulling spirits, bringing the dead, or pulling ethereal, non-physical energy into the physical realm. It is highly volatile. If incantation is building a wall with bricks, evocation is throwing a Molotov cocktail.
And finally, you have divination, tied to Mercury and symbolically to the owl. Mercury is fluid. It represents the mind, the air, volatility, and transition. The owl, traditionally across many cultures, represents wisdom, omens, and prophecy. Divination is the magic of scrying. It's peering beyond the veil of linear time to see what was or what will be.
Now, what is absolutely crucial to understand is that this structured, categorized Ivy League magic of the elite is presented in stark, intentional contrast to what the text calls wild magic, or what Dean Colt, one of the masters, later condescendingly admits is more accurately described as ancestral magic.
And this leads to one of the most fascinating real-world tangents the text takes. It roots the fantasy in actual history. The text explicitly links the founders of Warren University to the CIA's Stargaze project and contrasts their sterile power with the deep blood magic of Jamaican Ogambija.
This was a brilliant move. Ellery is digging through the archives trying to figure out who the old masters actually are, and she discovers that the founders of Warren University are allegedly members of the real-world New England Society for Psychic Research.
Ed and Lorraine Warren's actual historical group, the famous demonologists.
Yes. And the text notes that these elite men legitimized their clandestine occult activities, their obsession with magic, by infiltrating a declassified U.S. government program, the CIA Stargate project.
For those who don't know, the Stargate project was a very real, very heavily funded U.S. Army unit established in 1978 at Fort Meade. The military was terrified the Soviets were beating them in psychic warfare, so they poured millions of dollars into investigating the potential for psychic phenomena in military intelligence. Specifically, they were researching remote viewing, the ability to mentally see distant or hidden targets.
So in the world of the novel, the old masters used U.S. government funding, military infrastructure, and Cold War paranoia to research, codify, and hoard magic. They approached the occult scientifically, coldly, bureaucratically. They turned magic into a weapon of the state controlled by elite, wealthy white men in suits.
Now contrast that sterile, stolen, government-funded magic with Jamaican obeah. Aunt Carol tells Ellery a story about her childhood. When Ellery was young, she started seeing spirits. She saw the ghost of Miss Claudette, a woman from their neighborhood who had tragically died in a fire. Instead of taking her to a psychiatrist, her father consulted an obeah man in Jamaica.
Because obeah is not learned in a neoclassical library funded by a defense budget, obeah is ancestral. It is wild. It is passed down through blood, through spirit, through generational survival. It is deeply tied to the earth and to community.
The old masters covet this wild ancestral magic because their sterile academic incantations are weak by comparison. They can memorize all the formulas they want, but they lack the raw, unrefined battery power of the marginalized. They need the blood of the Godwin scholars to fuel their grand geopolitical designs.
And you feel the unnatural, deeply wrong constraint of this stolen magic in the very atmosphere of the book. The prose itself becomes heavy. The weather, the physical environment of New England is used to manifest this systemic rot. The rain in Hartford doesn't just fall. It's described as turning the cobblestone paths into elongated black tongues.
The imagery is so visceral. When the Graves ghost appears, this is Malcolm Mayhew, a former Godwin scholar who was murdered by the masters in the 1980s. The air around his apparition physically smells of necrotic rot. The magic of the elite literally smells like a corpse.
And even when Ellery uses her own magic, the physical toll on the earth is devastating. Remember the scene on the soccer field? Hudson is about to be hit by a wildly speeding soccer ball. Ellery reacts instinctively. She accidentally uses her wild magic to stop the ball in midair to protect him. But look at what happens to the ground beneath her feet.
She leaves behind a perfect, undeniable circle of completely dead soil. The grass turns gray and crumbles. The earth becomes cracked and dusty like dry sand in a desert. The magic isn't free. It drains the life, the moisture, the vitality from the earth itself. It is a heavy, terrible burden.
The relentless New England rain eventually washes away the dead soil. It washes away the physical evidence of the magic. But the question that breaks this narrative wide open is, how does the university wash away time itself?
This brings us to the most horrifying, stomach-dropping reveal in the entire deep dive.
The temporal loop.
The 3-year freshman trap.
I was reading this section, and my stomach physically dropped into my shoes. Ellery Morgan is a 21-year-old freshman. For the entire first half of the book, we are led to believe, and she is led to believe, that she is 21 because she took 3 years off after high school to work at the comic book store and the library in Astoria. She thinks she was just delayed by poverty.
But that is a lie.
She is a 21-year-old freshman because she has been living her freshman year at Warren University on a loop for 3 entire years.
I really want to pause and let the profound horror of that sink in. I want you to imagine waking up in your dorm room. The air is crisp. It's September again. You think you are finally starting your life. You think you've finally escaped the suffocating gravity of your hometown. You think you're finally getting your chance to prove yourself. You go to class. You study until your eyes bleed. You make friends. You fall in love. And then the board is wiped clean. You wake up, and it's September again. You have no memory of the year you just lived.
You are a rat in a maze. You are trapped in a terrarium.
The psychological horror of this loop is staggering. It is the ultimate violation of human autonomy. The old masters, Dean Preston Colt, Nathaniel Graves, the O'Connors, they take these brilliant, hopeful Godwin scholars, the Lost Eight, and they put them to sleep in that hidden tower. Tabby Rose, Malcolm Mayhew, Taiwo Daniels, Cody Flores, they're all up there on that freezing rooftop floating in those blue orbs.
And their wild magic, their ancestral power, is being actively siphoned off. What are the masters using it for? 2 things. First, they are using it to power the incredibly complex illusions of the dream world the students are trapped in. They are making the students power their own prison. And second, they are siphoning the excess magic to grant themselves immense godlike power in the waking world. They use it to manipulate the stock market, to influence global politics, to amass unimaginable wealth.
I want to use a modern metaphor to really explain how this works, because it's not just a magical sleep. Think of it like a high-end illegal crypto mining rig. The old masters have built this massive server farm, and Ellery's brain, her wild magic, is the ultra-powerful graphics card. They plug her in, and they're overclocking her processing power to mine this magical currency. They're running her at 110% capacity, day and night. And just like a computer processor, if you run it that hot for that long, it starts to physically melt down.
And because Ellery's ancestral magic is so immensely powerful, stronger than any of the other Lost Eight, her subconscious mind constantly bumps against the boundaries of the dream world programming. Her spirit knows she is trapped, even if her waking mind is wiped. That's why her déjà vu is so violent and aggressive. That's why she hallucinates. Her brain is glitching because it's overheating.
And it manifests physically. Her body literally fights the programming by manifesting a phantom tattoo.
The tattoo that appears on the back of her neck?
It spells the word remember, but the first E is backward. It surfaces on her skin, raw and red, and then fades away, only to come back burning when she casts magic. It is her own spirit, her own ancestral survival instinct, screaming through the thick suppression of the temporal loop, desperately trying to leave a physical breadcrumb trail for her waking mind to follow.
The siphoning spell enforces a cycle of forgetting. Every time Ellery gets too close to the truth, every time she pieces together that the library shouldn't have 8 floors, or that Liam Blackwood is acting strangely, the old masters, who log into the dream world to act as moderators, they hit the kill switch. They reset the board, they wipe her memory, they drag her back to September 1st.
Okay, this is where I have to step in and attack the plot logic of the villains.
Yeah.
I have to be the skeptic again. When I realized what was happening, my immediate thought was, why on earth would the old masters keep her alive?
What do you mean?
She is a massive liability. She is a systemic threat. She almost breaks their carefully constructed simulation multiple times. She accidentally uses wild magic on the soccer field. She summons the screaming echo of Malcolm Mayhew's murder in the library. If she is this dangerous to their entire billion-dollar operation, why not just kill her? They didn't hesitate to murder Malcolm Mayhew when he found out too much in the 1980s. Why risk keeping Ellery Morgan in a volatile, glitching loop for 3 entire years? It seems like an incredibly stupid risk for men who are supposed to be tactical geniuses.
It's not stupidity, it's addiction. Pure and simple. Yes. You have to understand the psychology of the parasite. Ellery's wild magic is the ultimate battery. Dean Colt explicitly tells her during the climax that she possesses the strongest, purest magic they have seen in decades. They are junkies, and she is the purest high they have ever found. They are using her unprecedented power to alter massive global events. They cannot bring themselves to turn off the generator. To go back to your metaphor, they know the crypto mining rig is sparking. They know it's threatening to burn down the entire house. But the payout is so impossibly huge, they just keep pushing it, hoping they can control the fire.
It goes back to the poem referenced at the very beginning of the book. It sets the thematic tone for the whole novel, Claude McKay's Birds of Prey.
Exactly. I want to quote it because it's the skeleton key to understanding the old masters, McKay wrote. Their shadow dims the sunshine of our day as they go lumbering across the sky, squawking in joy of feeling safe on high, beating their heavy wings of owlish gray.
The old masters are the birds of prey. They are greedy. They are so deeply insulated by their generational wealth, their unearned status, and their stolen power that they genuinely believe they can control the uncontrollable. They don't kill Ellery because their supreme towering hubris dictates that they're smart enough to manage her. They think they are untouchable gods, but in reality they are just bloated parasites gorging themselves on a host they fundamentally underestimate.
Greed of that magnitude demands a currency, and at Warren University, the currency is not dollars. The currency is humanity, specifically human memory.
We talked about how incantation requires the burning of a memory to create salt. To rewrite physical reality, one must actively lose their grip on their own mental reality. The old masters, these CIA infiltrating defense contractor warlocks, they figured out how to cast the spells, but they absolutely refused to pay the toll. They refused to sacrifice their own memories, their own brilliant minds, their own precious childhoods.
So they offshore the cost. They steal the futures, the memories, and the literal minds of marginalized students to fund their power.
Let's talk about Liam Blackwood, because if the temporal loop is the plot twist, Liam Blackwood is the emotional gut punch that makes the theme of memory as currency truly devastating.
It is the cruelest mechanism in the entire text.
Ellery dates Liam in the dream world, and I fell for it completely. I thought he was the classic, supportive, dark academia boyfriend trope. He is handsome, he is wealthy, but he uses his privilege to protect her. He defends her against the racist microaggressions of the elite salon members. He brings her coffee when she's studying. He kisses her in the hidden, mirror-lined hallway of the library. He makes her feel safe in a place that is designed to terrify her.
And he is entirely 100% fake.
He is a spell construct. He is lines of magical code. When Ellery finally breaks through the illusion, when she realizes the truth of the loop and confronts him, the facade drops. And he looks at her with this profound, programmed sadness and says, "I'm not one of the old masters. I'm a part of your dream, Ellery." He has to confess to her that the real Liam Blackwood, the actual student walking around the Waking campus, doesn't even know her name. He doesn't know who she is. The Liam she loved is just a story she was telling herself.
He was a psychological pacifier. He was explicitly encouraged and shaped by the siphoning spell to keep her compliant, to give her enough synthetic serotonin and comfort to distract her from the horrifying, freezing truth of her captivity on that rooftop.
It is devastating. The institution didn't just steal her time. It didn't just steal 3 years of her life. It manufactured her intimacy. It gave her a synthetic, custom-built love to keep her docile while it drained the blood from her veins. This is the ultimate, brilliant critique of how systemic oppression operates in the real world. Oppressive systems will offer you comforts, a prestigious scholarship, a fancy title, a corner office, a comfortable relationship to keep you pacified. They give you just enough to keep you from noticing that the beautiful neoclassical building you are standing in is built on the crushed bones of your ancestors, and soon it will be built on yours.
Which brings us to the climax of the narrative, the final verdict on the rooftop. Ellery makes it up there. Her astral body and physical body align. She wakes up. She sees her friends, the lost eight, trapped in the blue orbs. She sees Hudson, who has been violently pulled from the dream by his father, Nathaniel, and she has a choice to make.
And she makes a violent, cataclysmic, irreversible choice.
She doesn't just break the cages and run away. She turns her incredibly powerful, wild magic directly on the old masters.
She siphons them. She takes the very spell they used to drain her, and she reverses the polarity. She rips the magic out of Dean Preston Colt. She rips it out of Nathaniel Graves. She rips it out of the spoiled, cruel legacy students like Miles and Gaia who were complicit in the system. She drains them until they're screaming, until blinding blue light is literally pouring out of their eyes and ears. She leaves them physically alive, their hearts are beating, but she leaves them brain dead to the magical world. All their memories of magic, all their stolen knowledge is completely wiped. And then she uses the last of her power to tear the hidden stone tower down. She destroys the lodge. And effectively, she destroys magic itself.
It is a breathtaking ending.
I have to be honest, though. I finished the text, and I felt this profound sense of tragic loss.
Really? You didn't feel the triumph?
I felt that she lost. I will argue that by destroying the magic entirely, she let the oppressors dictate the terms of engagement. The old masters tainted magic. They weaponized it, turned it into a CIA defense contract, turned it into a parasite. But wild magic, ancestral magic, Obia, that was her birthright. That was her connection to her history. And her response was to burn her own birthright to ash, just to stop them.
What was the alternative?
She could have taken control. She was the most powerful caster in decades. She could have taken over the lodge. She could have used her ancestral magic alongside Ty and Cody and Hudson to rebuild a new, equitable system. By destroying the magic completely, doesn't she just ensure that the mundane, real-world wealth and power of these elite families, their trust funds, their political connections, will remain completely unchallenged? They are still rich. They are still powerful. And she lost her heritage. She disarmed herself.
I see the logic of your argument, but I fiercely, passionately defend her choice. Ellery's reckless, violent, scorched earth response is the only justified reaction to a completely, fundamentally rigged system.
But to burn it all down.
Yes. Because you cannot reform a Tollhouse built for the catacombs. You cannot take a machine that was designed and engineered solely to grind human bones and repurpose it to bake bread. It is impossible. If she had taken over the lodge, if she had kept the magic, she would have eventually, inevitably become an old master herself. Because the very system of hoarding power inherently corrupts the person holding it.
But she lost her magic. She lost that connection to her ancestors.
No, she freed it from being a commodity. Look at the exact phrasing used at the end of the text. It explicitly says, if magic faded from the world, maybe that was for the best. It was not the problem, but it had become a problem simply because of how it had been wielded. The magic was a neutral force that had been weaponized into a meat grinder. The only way to truly win against an institution built entirely on stolen lives is to completely, permanently dismantle its mechanisms of power.
You think it's a victory?
It is a revolutionary victory. She didn't let them dictate the terms. She ended the game entirely. She flipped the board over. She chose the painful, difficult truth of the waking world. She chose the messy, non-magical reality of returning to Astoria, dealing with student debt, working hard at the comic book store, over living as a queen in a gilded cage funded by the suffering of others. She chose her humanity over their supremacy. I want you to think about that choice. I want you to think about Ellery Morgan on that freezing rooftop. If your most cherished memory, the soft touch that grounded you when the entire world was spinning out of control, if the profound love that finally made you feel seen and safe, if all of that turned out to be a mathematical construct designed by your worst enemies simply to keep you compliant while they bled you dry, would you have the strength to choose the painful, freezing, difficult truth of the waking world? Or would you close your eyes, breathe in the stagnant, ancient air, and let the magic pull you back to sleep?